Neither host nor CBC's head of public affairs clarified what word was used. CBC News posted, June 9, 2029, 29 p.m. ET. Last updated 3 hours ago. Watch Wendy Mesley author over careless language in meeting. 4 hours ago. 206 Turn captions on CBC's Wendy Mesley will be off the air pending an investigation after, in her words, she used a word that should never be used during an editorial discussion. 206 174 comments. CBC News host Wendy Mesley has been suspended from hosting pending an investigation after she said she used a word that should never be used during an editorial discussion about race. Last Thursday, senior management within CBC News were made aware of an incident involving Wendy Mesley. While we investigate further, Wendy will not be hosting the weekly, CBC's head of public affairs, Chuck Thompson, said in a statement. Respecting the privacy rights of our employees, we have nothing more to add. News of Mesley's suspension was first reported by Ken Edlund. Mesley, whose program, The Weekly, aired on Sunday without her, took to Twitter on Tuesday to apologize publicly. It was not aimed at anyone. I was quoting a journalist we were intending to interview on a panel discussion about coverage of racial inequality, she wrote. I was careless with my language and wrong to say it. Regardless of my intention, I hurt people, and for that, I am very sorry. I am also deeply ashamed. I immediately apologized to my co-workers and recognize this is a word that no one like me should ever use. I made a big mistake and promised to change my behavior. Neither Mesley nor Thompson clarified what word she used. Editor's note on George Floyd's death. Journalism in inclusive newsroom. Stockwell Day exits CBC commentary role. Corporate posts after comments about racism in Canada. Andre Demise, a contributing editor at Maclean's magazine, told CBC's Eli Glasner he doesn't know what word Mesley used, but said he finds the incident emblematic of what it's like to work in Canadian media and Canadian journalism. That everything is just a one-off scenario. We want to look at it as a series of one-offs, little blunders that we can fix, he said. But that's exactly how systemic racism works. A serious problem. Demise said Mesley's comment is part of a wider issue of racial insensitivity at CBC News. He pointed to recent incidents including the airing of a video about demonstrations in New York City that did not include the critical moment a police cruiser drove into a crowd of protesters, as well as comments made by former Conservative Cabinet Minister Stockwell Day about racism in Canada on CBC's Power and Politics. When do you stop dropping the ball and figure out that you've got clumsy hands, is my question, Demise said. In our national broadcaster, there's a commitment to diversity, but there's no conversation around who makes the news, who's in front of the camera, who's behind the cameras. We want to look at it as a series of one-offs, little blunders that we can fix. But that's exactly how systemic racism works. Andre Demise, contributing editor at Maclean's. That's a serious problem when we're dealing with anti-black racism as it's erupting not only in Canada and the United States, but throughout the world. All of the artifices are being torn down, and we understand that there is a systemic problem, but nobody wants to take responsibility for it. During a recent discussion on anti-black racism on Power and Politics, Day likened the discrimination faced by visible minorities across Canada to the bullying he endured as a child. Should I have gone through school and been mocked because I had glasses and was called four eyes and because of the occupation of my parents? Day said. No, of course not. But are Canadians largely and majority racist? No, we are not. Day stepped down from his role as a commentator on Power and Politics and left senior positions at two major companies shortly after. A series of errors. CBC News editor-in-chief Brody Fenlon addressed the memed video, along with other issues related to the anti-black racism protests, in an editor's blog posted on Monday. He wrote that during coverage of the protests, CBC News made a series of errors. We broadcast video of police vehicles driving into crowds of protesters in New York City. The script was poorly worded and mischaracterized the events, framing them mostly from the police perspective, he wrote. Our team realized this and improved the language, but when we rebroadcast the clip, we had a technical production error that cut the video short, not showing the final moments when the police drove into the crowd. Fenlon wrote, with the scrutiny on our work at its highest level, we owned up to some examples where our storytelling was one-sided, or missing perspectives, or nuance, or sensitivity. The blog post listed a series of initiatives CBC News plans to undertake to be more inclusive, including unconscious bias training and endeavoring to hire more people from underrepresented equity groups. It all feels uncomfortably familiar to Demis. How many times do we have to do this? Neither host nor CBC's head of public affairs clarified what word people say right now. CBC News posted. June 9, 2029 PM last commitment to change the results in watch Wendy Mesley author over careless language in meeting 4 hours ago. This is about CBC options on CBC's Wendy Mesley will be off the air pending an investigation after, in her words, she used a word that should never be used during an editorial